Welcome back to the Flannel Rocket, the show with everything you need to know about Michigan startup scene. I'm Pete Martin, and I'm super excited to be bringing you a special episode today. We've got two guests, Chris Thomas of Assembly Ventures and Reilly Brennan of Trucks Ventures. These guys are legends in Michigan's venture capital scene. Honestly, I think legends in the mobility investment scene, doing incredible things in Michigan. And what we're talking about today, in addition to them and their backgrounds and everything. So thank you for being on the show, guys. What we're talking about today is the Tuebor Pledge. This is a special pledge, an individual pledge that somebody makes to invest in a Michigan-based company. We'll get into the details of that shortly. But first, Chris and Reilly, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Pete.
Thanks for having us.
That's so pumped
Awesome
that
to be
you're
here
here
on the Rocket.
Yeah, you're on the Rocket. Oh, man.
This is a big bucket list for me this year. So,
and I see that you dressed to impress for the show. So thank you.
I want to fit in.
So why don't we start, for anyone that's not familiar with you guys, just a little bit of background on you, what you're doing, how you came to be in the venture scene, how you guys met. Why don't we go from there?
Sure. Go ahead. Thanks. So, Chris Thomas, co-founder and partner at Assembly Ventures. My background is I would offer a true Michigan story, and I'm really excited to be here for that reason. Born in the UP, was there till I was 3, in Harvey, right outside of Marquette. Grew up in Waterford, Michigan, in Oakland County. Public school kid, a couple degrees locally at Michigan State, and then left the state, go white, and then left the state to go do a couple different adventures. One was working on Wall Street with UBS in New York and San Francisco, energy and technology. Had great experiences there. Very unexpectedly, when the Iraqi war kicked off, I quit my job as a banker, and with my brother, who was at Western Michigan at the time, he dropped out of school. I quit my job. We joined the Army. So I did 4 years in the service, 1 year in Iraq, west of Baghdad in a place called El Fa. Finished up on the east coast of the U.S. at Fort Meade, Maryland, and then was accepted to Yale. And a great experience there at the Yale School of Management. In between my first and second year of school, wanted to come back to Detroit. I remember going to the career development office, asking them what opportunities are in Detroit. And they're like, Chris, don't you want to go to New York or London or San Francisco or LA? I was like, no, I don't want. I want to go to Detroit. And I distinctly remember they're like, well, good luck. You know, there's nothing there that we can send you to. So I applied blind to a bunch of different opportunities.
What year was this?
This was 2008.
Okay.
So this was probably spring of 08 going into summer of 08. So choppy time, choppy waters. And I got a job in the Ford Treasury Excellence Program, an internship. And I showed up and I was hoping for 67-hour-a-week job that I'd be working just my butt off. And I showed up, they're like, we're trying to put a tourniquet on the company. You're going to be working on collateralized debt obligations. We need you about 35 hours a week. I was living with my late father downriver in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath bungalow. And I loved my father with all my heart. I did not want to spend the whole summer in that bungalow. So my second day in the job, I reached out to every senior level executive at Ford. I said, I just arrived yesterday, literally. I'd love a half an hour of your time to talk about why you're here, where this company's going, what questions should I be asking? And because they're all great Michiganders, they all said yes. And about 2 weeks into my internship, I got a call on my cube. Hey, Chris, this is Bill Ford. I got your message from my secretary. I have 30 minutes. Can you come upstairs? And I was like, yes, I can. And I ran upstairs, comes out of his office, doesn't know me from Adam. Chris, great to meet you. Appreciate your pluck. How much do you love your internship? And I'm like, I hate my internship, Mr. Ford. And I told about a minute of that story. He laughed at me. He's like, come on inside. We have 29 more minutes of discussion in the office. And at the end of it, he's like, have a nice summer, son. He shakes my hand and says, let me know if there's anything I can do for you. And I hold his handshake, and I say, there is, Mr. Ford. You can put me on the most interesting project at the company right now. And he's like, what's that? And I said, I have absolutely no idea, sir. I'm like, but you do. And that's why I came here. And he's like, have a nice weekend. I show up on Monday. The guy who I'm reporting to hates me even more now. He's like, get your things, report to Mr. Ford. I go upstairs. He's like, Chris, I thought about it over the weekend. I'm going to transfer you down to a group focused on the future of transportation in megacities. Let me tell you about it. 3 people, 25% time, no budget, skunkworks group. Come back in a week and tell me what you think. And that week, that was one of the busiest weeks of my life. That meeting at the end of the week became a weekly meeting. Mr. Ford became Bill. This earnest affinity in the summer of 08 around what we started calling mobility. And this was pre-Uber, pre-Waze, very early days. And at the end of the summer, I said, Bill, I'd love to spend the next year of my life building business plans around mobility. And he goes, well, what do you want to build? And I'm like, I have no idea. But I think there's the demographic trends and the technology trends here, and it's something that's real. And it's going to be impactful for Detroit. It's going to be impactful for Michigan. And I built really bad business plans for about 6 months with a colleague of mine at Yale. and then came to the thesis, let's be the first fund uniquely investing in mobility, which we launched in 2009. So Bill and I, we had 3 other individuals that came together around that team. I was there for about a decade, running hand in glove there, about 60 deals, air, land, sea, and space. Amazing experience from Detroit. I left in 2018, and then to Assembly Ventures in 2020.
And this previous was Fontanalis?
Previous was Fontanalis. Yeah. And then Assembly Ventures was kind of the, I think, early mobility 1.0, let's say, very focused on movement of people and goods, efficiencies around individual modes and supply chains. Just not to be too broad, but kind of looking at kind of where technology was going then, or too specific, rather. And I think for us at Assembly, we've been very, very deep in how we've thought about what is mobility. So we define it as the physical and digital movement of people, goods, data, and energy. We are based on 2 main theses and hypotheses that I've been thinking through for about a decade. One, that the East and the West are going to bifurcate, so beginning with the U.S. and China, but East and West holistically. I would offer today that's not novel. It's fact. 8 years ago, 10 years ago, it was very much so. I would have full-throated arguments with people around we're never leaving our supply chains in other parts of the world that maybe aren't advantageous to Michigan, to the United States, to the West. And then 2, we have a deep, abiding belief in the legacy industrial centers of the economic West. So think Detroit, Pittsburgh, Stuttgart, Torino, Tokyo, Seoul, the economic West. If those billion-dollar balance sheets make the right decisions around technology, acquisitions, and partnerships, they will thrive. And I have 2 little boys. I live in downtown Detroit. I work in downtown Detroit. Detroit is an unbelievable city. Michigan is, as I believe, the greatest state in the union. And I think we have a chance to do great things here by bringing, not only leveraging what we have, but building what we need to move the world. And so very, very proud that I've been able to be a part of this. But as I said at the very beginning, everything that I am begins and ends with Michigan. And I'm incredibly grateful for the state, for the place, for the people. And so being here was a no-brainer.
I love it. I love it. Also, we could go super deep on how, well, you probably know a heck of a lot more about this than I do, but anecdotally, how well positioned Michigan is to when it comes to the redomestication of the supply chain in the U.S. Like 40% of logistics grads come from just Michigan State University. We have the top supply chain schools in the country. Like, of course, right? Like, we are the people that are moving the physically moving the goods, the
Absolutely.
data, the everything through this country. Super interesting.
And as a quick aside, I think I just had the pleasure of being named to the Green and White Council. The new president at Michigan State put this together. Very honored to be a small part of that, but bringing the voice of entrepreneurialism, bringing the voice of reindustrialization, bringing the voice of how do we actually empower not only Michiganders, but people from around the world who should be here, because Michigan is the right place for that opportunity.
Love it. Love it. Thank you.
Of course.
Reilly.
Yeah, so
Where are
Reilly
you from?
Brennan.
How'd you get here?
Yeah, I grew up in Michigan. I actually, just loved the car business as a kid. So I always wanted to work at a car company. And I thought maybe develop vehicles, maybe be the CEO of a car company or something like that. Kind of an unusual, maybe different thing that most kids want to be a firefighter or something like that. I kind of wanted to work at GM when I was a kid. So,
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Birmingham.
Yeah, okay.
And, for me, it was just kind of in the water. Like so many friends, parents worked at Ford or GM or Chrysler. And I just loved it. So I always loved cars. And spent my whole life in transportation. So like 30 years almost I have in transportation. And I lived in California for about 11 years. And then we decided to move back during COVID. So I've been in Michigan for about 4 years. And we moved back. One of the things that I think Chris and I connected on is, we were somewhat competitive because I started a firm called Trucks about a decade ago. And Fontanalis and Trucks, although we did a lot of co-investments, also very similar thesis. And I always looked at Chris as like, kind of on the other side of the table. But when we moved to Michigan as a family, I thought, Chris actually isn't that bad of a guy. And we started talking more about...
Thanks for saying so, Ram.
about the state of Michigan and how much we love the state. And I think finally we were on kind of the same side of the table thinking about that. And when we moved, one of the things I was thinking about was like, how do I do more for my personal commitment to the state? And that's where this idea for Tuebor came up, which was, how can I make a commitment to myself, but also to the state, so that I'm putting real chips behind my belief in the state? And so I think our initial discussions around this idea were just, how do we individually do this? And then it started to have a little bit more shape, which is where this story gets more interesting and kind of turns into a full commitment. But Yeah, my background is deep auto transportation, and been lucky enough to be in that world for 30 years.
And you've got.
I was going to say I take a small amount of credit for Reilly moving back because every year for maybe 5 years prior, I was imploring you to come home, and when you called me finally, it was
Felt great.
it was fantastic.
Felt great. Yeah.
There should be some leaderboard or list of like the people that are moving back to Michigan and how that's happening. Because I just sent a message to a few folks last night about another founder that's moving to Michigan. I get like a couple of weeks of people that are coming to Michigan or want to be coming to Michigan, and so there needs to be like some list somewhere because just the momentum in this state is, I think it's understated. I don't think we have done a great job of like showing the stuff that it has changed and how rapidly it's been changing. But I see it, right? I see it in my LinkedIn messages, which is a weird place to like anecdotally get this information, but I'm getting it, you know? So yes, you coming back to Michigan. We've got Eli Fry. Shout out to Eli if you listen to the show. Eli moved back to Michigan recently. Was it 23andMe, and is now moving on to his next thing here in the state. And his wife Amy Matthews, I had a chance to chat with her. She's
fantastic.
Vista, so cool.
And as a quick aside, because you won't say anything nice about yourself on this whole podcast, the reason you're getting all those messages, the reason we're seeing a lot of this activity is because of the yeoman's work and the real work that you're doing in spreading the gospel of Michigan. And you're doing fantastic work in a genuine way. And I know Reilly and I appreciate it. The community appreciachs it a great deal.
Well, thank you. As a Michigander, that makes me really uncomfortable.
I know.
but
no comment.
We're suspicious, as Midwesterners, we're suspicious of compliments. Of course. So that's the genesis of Tuebor is really, could we make a commitment? You know, and I think one of the most fascinating parts about Michigan is that people really love the state in a disproportionate way. I mean, some people choose to wear a Shinola watch or wear an Iserman jersey in the middle of the summer or something like that. And trust me, we do that too. Chris wears flannel all year round.
Heck yeah, he does.
Especially on Wednesdays.
But I think for our perspective, and it's a little bit like to a man with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. As investors, we thought, what are the investments we can make to do that? And that's where this Tuebor thing starts, where Chris and I individually said, well, man, it felt good to do one investment.
Yeah.
What more can we do? And so making it into a pledge, a commitment to ourselves to say, we're going to do this actually for the rest of our life. And so we're going to make a Michigan investment every year for the rest of our life. When we started, we were thinking maybe more about startups, but when you talk to people, they want to do more than just invest in startups, and you also want to open the aperture so that people who aren't necessarily doing startup investing can still do a Tuebor investment. And so we don't care if you're making an investment of $1 million or $1. The fact is you do it every year. So you could buy $1 worth of Miller Knoll or Dow or Ford or Haggerty in your Robinhood account. That's actually on the same plane, so to speak, as Chris writing a check for $1,000 or $1 million into a startup. Same thing in our mind, as long as you do it every year.
And 2 important points. What is Tuebor? Why do we choose this name? Every Michigander listening, I know, knows that on the Michigan state flag, Tuebor is sitting right above the shield on the Great Seal of Michigan. It means I'll defend. The flag was built and that word was put there when we were on the far western edge of the United States when the country was expanding west. And importantly, Tuebor is not a fund. Tuebor is a pledge. Mm-hmm. This is us just putting our hand up and saying we promise to ourselves that we're going to make an investment. And for Reilly and I, as he said, we love to make startup investments. We're in New Lab today at Michigan Central, the ability to back many of these great companies and founders. But if you're buying a share of a stock once a year and that's what you have the ability to do and you're excited to back a Michigan company, all of that is equal. It's just about supporting Michigan and Michigan business and Michigan entrepreneurs and companies.
All right, so individual commitment to back any company headquartered in Michigan, any company in Michigan. Do you have to be from Michigan to make this pledge?
No.
You don't. You can be from anywhere around the world. And actually, maybe right out of the gate, the great group that came together in our initial announcement a couple of years ago was just an amazing group of people.
Yeah, I mean, we have people that you would have known, like Doug Song, who gave us a list of the investments that they've made in 24. There's a couple dozen people that are friends of ours that have decided to make this commitment. And that's really great. So it's not a fund. We're not an investment advisor. We're not saying make these investments in such and such company. But I think one of the best parts about what we're doing is that it's from the bottoms up. This isn't a state level mandate. This isn't a fund saying we have these rules. We're going to buy, these expensive coffee makers, et cetera. we're basically saying from the ground up, you love that, don't you, Chris?
I love it.
We're all going to make this commitment. And that, for me, means it's going to outlive any administration. So whether it's somebody else in Lansing now or in the future, honestly, Tuebor is kind of impervious to that. We'll be making these investments for decades. So that's what's really exciting about making the commitment, is that it is totally independent of, is a state involved? Is somebody giving you permission? No, it's yourself.
And hashtag Coffee Maker Chaos. Shout out to Mark De Laverne and Will Foss.
Yeah, all of our good men doing work in that thread.
One other thing I want to just point to, if you look at Reilly or I's LinkedIn or Doug Song's LinkedIn or others that are part of Tuebor, you'll see that right under our kind of main gig, it actually says Pledge Investor Tuebor. Through Tuebor.org, I pledge to invest at least in one state of Michigan-based business per year. And we put this prominently on LinkedIn because we want people to be like, what is that?
Right. Yeah.
And what, why are they investing there? But it's just an easy way to hold up this organization, which is, it's not about the organization, it's about catalyzing investment in great people and great things in Michigan.
So if somebody wants to join, how do they do that? Do they have to call you?
So if you go on the website, you'll actually see there's a how-to page, which I will give full credit to Mr. Brennan.
We'll put it, I'll tell you now, we'll just put it in the show right now as people are watching. So tuebor.org.
So if you click here, you'll have the ability to read about tuebor.org. And I think it's super easy. It's literally just saying yourself that you're going to do this. The LinkedIn piece is a great way to hold it up publicly. But you'll follow the step-by-step. You will have brownies in 25 minutes. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah. The real simple instruction is make an investment this year, make another one next year. That's really what you have to do. And, there's no reporting structure. We're not approving an investment. You're not doing it through a fund. It's on your own. So you can give, your brother-in-law starting a donut shop, and you give him $50. That's a Tuebor investment.
Absolutely. It counts in a big way.
Yeah. And so what we want to do is make the sort of the atom size for Tuebor really small. And it's all part of for me, a really interesting mosaic of Michigan. We've done a lot of fascinating financial things as a state for the first time. Just for the historical record, Michigan was one of the first states to invest the state money into venture capital funds back in the early 80s. And so this is another thing that I think Chris and I know, that once more states realize to capture the enthusiasm that citizens have about where they grew up, no doubt other states will do this, and that's fine. But it started here first with Tuebor.
We have a long-standing history of doing things first in Michigan. Like we were the first state. I didn't know this. We were the first state to put the right to a free education in our Constitution. It was in our Constitution before we even became a state. Like 1836, we did this. Became a state in 1837. Like we just constantly have moved the ball forward, both economically and socially, and like just in so many ways. And we've been around for less than 200 years. I think it's why a pledge like this makes so much sense to be made in Michigan, right? For people in and from Michigan or around the country, around the world, to be investing in this state, because we believe in the power of the people in this state to do incredibly good things. So thank you for getting this started.
No, it's our pleasure.
Let's move on. So part of the reason we did the show is because Reilly reached out to me a few months ago, said, when's the Flannel Rocket coming back? So thank you, because it's back.
We love it.
And secondly, we wanted to do an annual report on the Tuebor Pledges from the previous year. So we're going to consider this the very first annual report of the Tuebor Pledge from 2024. We've got a list of, Reilly sent over a list of a handful of investments that have been made. This is just some of the investments that were made over the last year. So shout out to Corey Tincher and the folks at Detroit Venture Partners who invested in Bloom, and I think multiple people invested in Bloom last year. But Bloom's
including Chris and I.
Okay. So DVP, you all, Doug Song also listed it. We're also at MSU Research Foundation also invested in Bloom.
And huge shout out to Justin for being incredibly plucky with how he has gone about ensuring that he brought that coalition and constellation of investors together. Super impressive.
And he's not from Michigan, but it almost feels like he is.
He is now.
Yeah.
We just saw him right before we started recording this episode.
Right when we were walking in, he was like, I am amazed by how much people from Michigan love Michigan.
Yeah, because Chris was showing off his socks, which have Michigan on them, which, maybe we'll show it, maybe we won't. But good stuff.
That's behind the paywall.
That may be true.
We can't.
That may be true.
We can't. We got to hold.
Let's have some secrets here.
If you subscribe, maybe we'll get Chris to show
Click
off his
here.
socks. All right, so Corey, the folks at DVP, and everyone else in Michigan for supporting Justin and Bloom, who has since gone on to bring multiple other companies here to Michigan, which is just, it's this shows the virtuous cycle of when you back people in Michigan, incredible things happen.
And just really quickly, what is Bloom? I mean, one-stop shop for actually scaling manufacturing from startups into different stages of their growth. A must-have if we are going to have hardware, software startups in the state of Michigan who get root and then can scale with other partners around our ecosystem. But a great idea and a fantastic team.
That's right. Shout out as well to Josh Berg for investing in Monger's Provisions. You all know Josh more than I do, and maybe you know Monger's Provisions. I did not. I thought it was super cool to look up. This is not doesn't look to be high-growth startup that's raising millions of dollars, things like that. But it's awesome, right? It's here in Southeast Michigan. It's like a cheesemonger's place and charcuterie boards and just like great things that you definitely want to see in your community. So just a really cool example of like it doesn't have to be tech startup. Agreed. It can be great local business that you're investing in too. And then Doug Song sent over a list of a bunch of investments. I think most people that watch this show are going to know who Doug is. But Carvis, that investment, Bloom, Cirque Nova, love Crystal Brown and what she's doing at Cirque Nova. Mark at Breadless. Breadless is great as well. Guildform, another investment. Reportwell and Church Space, two companies that they invested in and then moved to Michigan because of that investment. Love that. And I think we're seeing a lot of that. Like I have an example of like 3 or 4 companies that the MSU Research Foundation invested in over the last 6 months that have all moved to Michigan. Church Space is one of them.
And by the by, the foundation's activity on directs is great to see. I'm so happy to see these organizations coming in on the merits. It's not just dollars going out, but with some amazing entrepreneurs.
Yeah, love it. I'm trying to get the number of checks that the MSU Research Foundation wrote last year. I'm pretty sure it's north of 90. Just sheer number of checks, but the companies are great too, and the quality of founders in Michigan continues to rise, of course, right? Because the maturity level is going up, the experience level is going up, but the companies that we're seeing now are just like it's just way better than a year ago, 2 years ago, and so the same founders are way better than they were a year ago, 2 years ago.
Well, I like companies like Mott, who we just invested in from an institutional perspective through Assembly, but Elliot and that team, an amazing Michigan State story. Built off issues that we had in the state with the Flint water crisis, but I believe has a huge opportunity globally. I mean, it's just a wonderful story.
Yeah, and another example of someone that's building a thing here in Michigan that's world-changing stuff.
Absolutely.
You know, like when you can prevent another Flint or what happened in Detroit this winter, you can prevent that by sending a little thing, autonomous robot into water pipelines and scanning everything. So cool. So cool. Elliot, you're the best. 2 more from Doug Song. Cal Morris, the space company being built in Marquette. Awesome company. They had a mission to NASA at the end of last year, or a mission to the International Space Station with NASA at the end of last year. They've done 170 tests with them since then.
Which was amazing. I'm an early's checking them as well, and that team, Adam and team, is just unbelievable. The fact they're building that in downtown Marquette, it's just incredible.
I've been in the office. It's in the basement,
right
really downtown cool. Marquette. So good, so good. And then Nunchi, if you all don't know, that's Trista Van Tine, who was running Michigan Founders Fund, has now launched Nunchi, which is an AI company to help people make real connections in this next era that we're moving into, which I think is going to be extremely important.
Fun story about Doug Song. When Reilly and I went to him, we're like, we want to do Tuebor is one investment a year.
Yeah.
And I remember him thinking, he's like, what about one investment a month?
Yeah, no, he's a volume shooter. Well, and for us, 23 was the year that we put some shape around Tuebor, and we had an op-ed that was in the Detroit News at the end of that year. And that year we did both Treehouse. I did it as a fund investment. You did it personally. And we did Hush that year. So Nick Rambis, who's here in New Lab a lot. And then last year we did Bloom together. I did Carvis through Trucks. And you did
Pearl Edison.
Yeah, Pearl Edison. So, sometimes Chris and I will, because one of the things about making these investments is I think whenever somebody tells me about a really smart person that's starting a company in Michigan, I'm already sort of half interested in, like, I really need to meet this person. So when Chris picked up the phone, he's like, hey, you got to meet this person. They're starting a company. That's why we've done a few of them together. And we don't have to, but it's nice sometimes when you get that word from a friend of yours that's already been doing this. You're like, okay, well, now I got to meet with them now, today, before this round, sort of escapes me.
And then just how do you engage? If you're an entrepreneur listening and you're trying to raise capital, you're trying to engage with folks who are investing in startups. And again, this is for everyone. You can buy one share of a stock per year, but if you are looking at positions in early stage startups, We are in New Lab at Michigan Central today. Reilly and I are here all the time. We're trying to put together kind of a standing first Wednesday of the month where we have the opportunity for a VC Wednesday where we will have funders from Michigan and from elsewhere who are here with service providers and give people just a standard way to have a touch point and talk about the opportunities that you're excited about building and that we can invest in. But I think that's something else we're working on alongside this, like really making those genuine connections. And I don't know of any other city in the United States. I always say Detroit's the smallest big city in America. But Detroit and all the great cities across the state of Michigan, the desire to truly listen and engage if there's a fit is so genuine.
You mentioned this earlier when you said, hey, I reached out to all the executives at Ford and I got meetings with all of them. I did a very similar thing when I moved back to Michigan, and I realized because of Trista. Trista told me about Michigan Tech Week. I went to that, and then all of a sudden I knew that there were startups being built here. And I just reached out to everybody on LinkedIn. I had meetings with everybody because everyone in Michigan is really, really helpful, right? Like the default is like, sure, yeah, I'll take that meeting. It's culturally, I think, one of the hardest things to do, and we have it by default because we're here in Michigan, we're here in the Midwest. Like I had meetings, I reached out to Chris Ryzik, just had a meeting with Chris Ryzik for fun, because I was curious about what he was doing, and he was really helpful, connected me with more people. And the number of examples of things like that happened before I knew anybody back in Michigan, and like now, just get to talk to everybody all the time. But it's because it was super easy to reach out to someone that I had zero connection to, and they said yes nearly every single time. It must have been 90-95% of the time.
And I would offer 90% of the time when they don't respond, it's not because they're not interested, it's just they're really busy. And so just keep trying, just keep going. Absolutely.
Yeah, so cool.
I think next year, at the end of this year, what would be great, Pete, is if we come back with more of the Tuebor commitment people to be on the show. Because when we reached out, there's a few people that gave us a list. I think you're going to play some clips at the end of the show. But I know at the end of this year, because we reached out and we said, hey, what was your 24 investment? A few of our friends that said yes in 23 didn't do one in 24. And we're watching. But now they have an opportunity to make good on that for 25. And so I think at the end of 25, what's going to be great is to say like, hey, what did you do for Tuebor this year? And it's going to be really fun to do this show again. Beginning of 26, end of 25.
If you have made the Tuebor Pledge and you're looking for deal flow on like great companies that are being built in Michigan, at least on the high growth startup side, come talk to me. We know we're invested in so many companies here in Michigan.
The new job board.
Look at the job board. I'm just beyond excited about that thing.
Cool.
Look at that, right? You'll see great companies that are hiring in Michigan. It'll give you an understanding of like how quickly they're growing, maybe.
Actually, just from the hip, thinking about this as you're talking, I would love to see if it was easy for that job board, for our list of startups in the state of Michigan, just another column that says Tuebor investment. Is there a Tuebor investor in those startups? And the ones that aren't, the Tuebor community should know about. If there's an easy way to make sure that we are cross-pollinating that, that could be powerful.
I love it.
It's a classic VC move. It throws out a great idea. There's some engineering work involved, and he gets to just walk away. It's 2 lines of code, right?
I'll talk to the team. We'll see.
Just from the,
it'd be really good. It'd be really good. I also had just as we were walking into the studio, some folks that have pulled together another thing that has been missing in Michigan, which is like where are all of the events that are happening across the state. They've done it. They've got a bunch of folks behind them. We're going to be talking in an hour or 2 hours about that, so that'll be really fun. So many good things are coming. Like foundational infrastructure to show how rapidly things are growing in Michigan, because it's not, as much as like Detroit is the top 15 city in the country for pre-seed now and top 10 for Series B according to Carta. That just came out a few weeks ago. That's just Detroit, right? That doesn't include Ann Arbor, not Grand Rapids, not Lansing, not Kalamazoo,
not Bobolo.
Not Bobolo. Startup
B-Rounds.
Island is going to happen. That Startup Island on Bobolo Island, I don't know how that's going to happen, but it's going to happen. And some people from Canada want to make it happen too. So I think like cool things.
As long as the OPP are on board, we're good.
That's so good. Yeah. It's fun fact. Do you know about there's a post office, like a floating post office in the Detroit River?
It's the only one in the country.
It's the only one in the country. It has its own zip code. I'm like struggling for the name. I'm going to put the name in the comments or something.
It's very cool when they bring it out to the big ships coming through.
So good. All right. So Startup Island is a thing that'll happen on Bobolo Island. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to happen. You're going to make it happen now. Okay. Goodness. Now we got to move on. Oh, so other Tuebor investments that you all have made in 2024. Did you list them all? You listed?
I mean, we went through most of them. I think.
Yeah, we went through the 24s.
Yeah. And
Okay.
I think there are some that are been made and are brewing for 25, but I think we sit on those and wait.
Yeah. Till the end, till the next show.
Till the
when
next
we come
show.
back.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the 25 ones later.
Done. This is an annual
Yeah.
thing, so we'll
We
make
just
it a
did.
big thing.
We just did one this week though. So
Right.
yeah.
Well,
So we'll have
congrats.
one to share soon.
It's behind
I love it.
behind the paywall.
Yeah.
But I will say just really quickly, your point around the events taking place in Detroit, in Michigan. Importantly, we are in Detroit. We are sons of Detroit. We love this place. It's not just about Detroit. Amazing things are happening in Grand Rapids. Amazing things are happening at our universities on both peninsulas, in our cities in both peninsulas. Like, this is something that's happening across the state.
Yeah.
The more we can get together, the more we can think about ways in which we work together, the better. And that's something that I think is lost in this discussion sometimes, especially with our friends on the west side of the
Sure.
state.
Yeah.
I see what's happening in Michigan, and a large part of it because of the work that Trista and team. Like, I ended up joining that team, but what we were doing at Michigan Founders Fund for multiple years was connecting founders from across the state of Michigan. I really do believe that tore down the barriers between cities, and founders are more connected than ever. And because founders are connected, everyone else is getting connected, and when we look back in 10 years and we see the meteoric rise of this state back to the top of this country, which we have been, right? We have always been at the top. The last 30, 40 years have been more difficult, but we have always been sitting at the very top of what's going on in the United States. When we look back at how quickly we were able to rise across this entire state, it will be because we got connected across the state. Founders got connected, everyone else got connected. And I see when we can lean more into that as a state and as communities across the state, great things are happening.
And it will be because we focus on everyone rising
Correct.
and everyone having the opportunity to do great things in the state, which I think sometimes we're not nearly focused enough on.
Correct.
Yeah.
And for those watching, you have that ability too, right? Sign up for the Tuebor Pledge and make that commitment to be backing other companies here in Michigan for $1 or for $1 million, whatever you can do. Sign up. Sign up today. Sign up now while you're watching the show. All right. Okay, fun things. Okay, so Michigan's momentum, right? We kind of led into this already, but what is it that excites you about this state right now? What is it about Michigan that really has you excited?
I mean, I think if you just look at my own interest in auto and transportation, the number of engineers that are in Michigan is phenomenal, right? So the number of PhDs, the number of master's degrees in mechanical, electrical, computer science that are obsessed with the auto business and transportation overall, that's really great. And I think Michigan's always been, and particularly University of Michigan, has been such an amazing place where we found founders. With our fund, we also see them moving to other places. And so one of the long-term goals, of course, I think for all of us, but especially for Tuebor, is why don't more of those people stay in the state of Michigan to start their first round of the business, round or two? And I think that's going to happen a lot more. But the talent in the state is phenomenal. What's exciting for me about Michigan is that we're now within this wave of post-duo security acquisition. There are real startups here making real money, going public. It's not like, hey, Michigan is a place that has some sort of artificial startups that are, some sort of version of what's going on the coast. There are real businesses that have been built through venture capital dollars in the state that have grown here and are standing really tall, and that's pretty phenomenal right now in 2025. I know you have probably a similar view to it, Chris.
Wait, to back you up with data, right? Michigan, #1 state in the country for engineers per capita. Ann Arbor, the most educated city in the country.
I know it's tough for Michigan State guys to talk about that, but
fine. We're one state.
It's one state.
we're one state, right?
One fight.
Yeah.
Except during football and basketball season.
Right.
That's here in
Except during
Northern
football
Idaho.
and basketball season, that's right. Oh, and then the largest IPO of the year last year, Lineage,
Yeah.
right, from Michigan, right, MSU grad.
Yeah. But who's
who's
counting?
yeah,
I
who's
mean,
tracking?
one
We're not.
state,
Who's
one
saying?
state.
I would agree. I would agree with all that. But when I think about what am I most excited about, I think I'm really excited about, a big change in the mindset of our state. And we've always been incredibly passionate. The citizens of the state of Michigan are incredibly passionate. The citizens of our cities are incredibly passionate. And that passion shows up. It shows up in how they're working, how they're helping, how they're
socks they're
engaging.
wearing.
The socks they wear on occasion. It's real. But I would also offer there's an earnest and necessary fear in terms of what do we need to do right now to make sure that we are going to succeed greatly for ourselves and our children and those that come behind us. And I think that's such an important thing, because I can remember 10, 15 years ago, there was much more of a kind of birthright view in some ways. Like, we are the home of automotive, we always will be. We are the home of manufacturing, we always will be.
Breakfast cereals.
We are the home of breakfast cereals, we always will be. That has not been the case. And people are now looking around and saying, wait a minute, this is not a birthright. We're gonna have to fight. We're gonna have to work. We're gonna have to suffer to actually succeed greatly. That, in my mind, is an amazing power that we have here. And it's not one that it's an odd one in some ways when you think about, like, why would you focus on that? But I think the mindset we take to every day, like, I want to go out and win. I want to go out and dominate. I want to go out and, with my partners, grow great cities and values and things that I care about for myself and my kids.
It's earned, not given.
It's
we
earned,
tell
not
our
given.
children about their screen time.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, like, you got to earn
Yeah.
it. And I think that is one of the most interesting components of maybe auto and transportation and drones and a lot of things that are happening around here, is that we have no named right to be the leader in automotive for the next 100 years. So you have to really think about, what are the investments we're going to make, what's the infrastructure we're going to put forward so that we can be, but no one's just going to give it to us just because we are
Correct.
Detroit, Michigan.
Correct.
And
I say earnest fear because it's not paralyzing, but it's just like, every day we should be waking up and being like, I need to go and get it.
Yeah.
And I love that energy that I
Yeah.
feel much, much, much more so now than I did a decade ago.
Firm believer. So actually, when I started at MSU Research Foundation, I bought these hourglasses and gave them to the team because I also believe that, like, we're in a super, super special time right now to do incredible things. Like, this window of time that we have right now, we're so lucky that we're here
Agreed.
doing the things that we're doing right now because of the position that the state is in. It just so happens to be that from a macroeconomic perspective, the things that Michigan has always been great at, like, those are important again, right? Supply chain and logistics, redomesticating the supply chain, semiconductors, like all of the clean tech, we're number one state for clean tech, manufacturing, advanced manufacturing. We're great at all of this stuff. We've been great at these things, and it's important. Again, the importance of that kind of fell off over the last 20, 30 years or more. And, like, how lucky are we that we get to be doing the things that we as a state are exceptional at again? But how long is that going to last? It won't last forever.
And that point you made is so important because, as I mentioned before, we see mobility as a movement of people, goods, data, and energy. We think the biggest opportunities are at the intersection of those. Michigan brings all of those. The future of energy storage, the future of energy transition, the way we're thinking about data utilization, how we're thinking about manufacturing at scale. We can do that today. And this is an opportunity we have to take advantage of. But one thing I want to circle back to, you talked about events coming to the city, other things happening in the city. Reindustrialize is happening next month. And I think that's another great example of why are they here and why are we bringing this huge community? It's really remarkable.
Yeah, from all across the country, probably across the globe, are coming to Detroit for Reindustrialize. And that's going to be here the next couple of years minimum, maybe forever.
Well,
but earned, not given.
That's right.
Correct. I think we have to earn it. But I know that we're going to have Palmer Luckey. I know we're going to have Kathy Wood. I know we're going to have an assortment of the who's who of individuals who are building and investing in the future of U.S. and Western manufacturing. That's exciting. That's exciting. That's happening here.
Love that. My own thing that gets me excited about Michigan, besides the fact that we're so well positioned for all these things that are extremely important, I think the perception of Michigan is changing. Right? It has been. I think. I have a lot of anecdotal evidence. There's some actual data here too. The perception of Michigan, we all lived outside of Michigan. When we lived outside of Michigan, if you told anybody that you were from Michigan, generally the first words out of their mouths were, I'm sorry. Right? It was, I'm sorry for your state. I'm sorry for Detroit. I'm sorry for the bankruptcy. I'm sorry for the Lions. Like, everything was negative about the state. I moved back to Michigan in 2022, saw that, felt like the proverbial fish it's like the frog in the pot of boiling water, right? Where it's like, holy cow,
Sure.
look at what's happening here. And started calling folks around the country saying, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rank Michigan for technology and innovation? I had multiple people tell me 0 because they had heard nothing. They knew nothing, right? Just bankrupt Detroit. and that perception is changing in a really big way. At the NFL draft was remarkable,
Huge.
right? The fact that we just blew the attendance record out of the water, but also the nation's and the world's eyes were on Detroit again, and literally they were leaving going, oh my gosh, like that place is nothing like I thought it was. You know, like that place is cool, right? That's super cool. I was just meeting with Hillary Doe yesterday. Her team has data that shows the perception of Michigan is changing in a big way. I want access to that data because I want to be able to talk to that in more detail. But that's awesome, right? And that pair that with the fact that Detroit is growing. Detroit grew 2 years in a row.
Sure.
Before that, hadn't grown since 1960, right? It had been almost 70 years that we hadn't grown. Unbelievable. Anyway, so super excited about that, and I think it's reflective of all of the amazing things that are happening in the state, the great companies, the great people that are here, and now the great culture that is shining again in Michigan. It's super exciting.
And perception is always temporal. It's always relative. I mean, I moved downtown in 2010, 2011, and the amount of change we've seen. And the important thing for people to keep in mind, I think, is that I would often, in those 5-year span from 10 to 15, I'd have people from the coast fly in, and I'd go to these conferences or presentations in Detroit, and they talk about Detroit's a blank sheet of paper. And I would get so furious. And it's like, Detroit is an unbelievable city with a deep history, with an amazing people, both core and metro and statewide. And the idea that you just kind of can talk about this being kind of some like restart.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly right. And I think I totally agree with you. We have moved past that in a big way. But the important thing is we have so much farther to go. And we now are in a place where we have the components to compete and win, and now we have to move to win every day.
Yeah, we've
Good.
always had innovators. You know, we've had Claude Shannon and James Yancey and Doug
Yeah,
Song and
absolutely.
guys like that,
Reilly Brennan.
of course. But now I think what you guys are tapping into is there's this enthusiasm to put more sort of wood behind those efforts, right? So like not only do you have individuals that are fantastic, but you have this growing sense that we collectively can support them. And support can mean different things, right? It can mean the jersey, it can mean the hat, it can mean a Tuebor investment. And that's,
Yeah.
I think, from within the swim lanes, you could think about your Michigan enthusiasm. This is a new swim lane to think about, and we think it's worth doing. So
Yeah.
thanks,
Yeah.
Pete.
And we live in the early stage ecosystem, but it's important to point out, you look at what Ford has done here at Michigan Central. You look at their investments in a variety of different future of mobility companies. You look at Stellantis and Stellantis Ventures and how they've engaged. You look at GM and GM Ventures, how they have engaged. There are efforts at every level to make sure that we are empowering innovation. And the more we can bring all of our efforts together, Tuebor is a big part of that at the infancy, at the beginning of that food chain, which we think is just so important. It's great that we're seeing these large corporates. It's great that the state is leaning in, but it begins with each of us. It begins with us backing people we believe in, and that's where it begins.
And what better state to do that than Michigan, right? Like when you go out and you see the number of people that are wearing Lions jerseys, Red Wings jerseys, Michigan socks, awesome flannels, right? Like this is way more than I ever saw in New York or Texas or
For sure.
Illinois. Like you just don't see that outside of Michigan. Really, I think Michigan is. Someone mentioned this to me last week how insular this state is because we have the two peninsulas. We're influenced by ourselves and not so much by other people because we just don't have the natural kind of borders that another state would have. And so we are naturally inclined to be, for better or worse, like influenced by ourselves. And I think over the last 30, 40 years, that was more negative. But now, goodness.
So really quickly on this point, I often talk about you have real friends and you have deal friends. Deal friends are transactional. There's nothing wrong with deal friends. Michigan is a place where both of you are my friends. Mm-hmm. Both of you are people that we care about moving the world in the direction of innovation, of value, of the things that we care about intrinsically. There's no place like Michigan in the world. If you're doing deals in New York, if you're doing deals in LA, it's not the same. It doesn't have this underlying, I want to do well, but I want to do good. And that's important.
Good. Could be a whole episode just on that. All right. We're going to wrap up. But before we do that, a small quick fire round. Are there any companies or brands that you want to particularly shout out? We're just going to throw this out there now. And so we're putting you in the hot seat. Any companies or brands that you particularly want to shout out? Could be investments that you've made. It could just be a Carhartt or a really cool Michigan brand that you want to talk about on the show and shout out and make sure that everybody watching knows about.
Go ahead.
So there is a remarkable business in Bel Air, Michigan, that is a veteran-owned company that's donating a percentage of its profits to veterans and first responders who have suffered from PTSD. It's called Freedom Hill Coffee Roasters. It is an unbelievable product. It is one that's genuine in its mission. Its founder is my brother, Scott Thomas, who served with me in the military in different places when we were there. I'm so proud of him and the struggle he's gone through as an entrepreneur in northern Michigan to get this off the ground, to build a successful business. But if you guys have never tried this, I highly recommend go to Freedom Hill Coffee Roasters, buy one bag, sign up for the subscription. I love my little brother a great deal, but it truly is an amazing business. And I've seen him and his wife Jill go through this journey. And my sister-in-law, with her background in marketing, was someone that came from Chicago to build this here. It's an amazing company.
Freedom Hill Coffee Roasters. I know we're getting our coffee. Awesome.
I'm reading a history of Herman Miller right now, and it just blows me away at how many types of people Herman Miller and Cranbrook and the design community in Michigan brought to the state, and all the amazing people that were designing stuff that really the west side of Michigan now has become famous for the last 75 years. And it just blew me away, the global influence and how thoughtful so much of the leadership was. So now it's called Miller Knoll, but that's what I would say, Miller Knoll.
Ooh, that's a good one. Now, Miller Knoll. Herman Miller, now Miller Knoll.
What's yours?
Yeah.
I'm going to shout out, because I'm wearing them, Samson's Hair Care in Kalamazoo, started by this guy, Adam Muncie. You know, kind of the biblical Samson, right? It's kind of the where they started this thing. But they are the most popular product in, I want to say it's Vietnam. It's Vietnam or the Philippines. I think it's Vietnam, because they completely vertically integrated their own hair product, right? So this hair product, I've known Adam for a couple of years now. Met him in Kalamazoo in
Great
September.
hair, by the way.
Yeah, you look
Chris and I were going to
fantastic.
say
Thank you.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, Samson's Hair Care. There you go.
Click here.
That's another great career opportunity.
It's so good. Well, Samson's Hair Care. I love Adam because he's just I think a typical Michigan founder in the best way, right? Didn't know what he was doing. Wanted to do. I think he had a barbershop. Wanted to get into hair care. Didn't know like that whole process, right? And so he and his co-founder got in and started creating their whole thing. Didn't know that like everybody outsources the whole thing when it comes to hair care, and so they're totally vertically integrated. Created their everything about their hair care line. I think they have lots of great things coming for them because they did that. And they created it in their own way, which is why they're the most popular product, I want to say again, in Vietnam, because they have a hair product that withstands the high humidity in those environments. And every other hair product has a certain ingredient that like fails when that happens. So super cool. Plus, he's just a great guy, right? Like genuinely great person, and is very happy to help other people that are building in the CPG space in Michigan. So
And
shout out
I
to him.
love that we ended in Kalamazoo, GR,
Ooh.
and in Bel Air, Elk Rapids. Like
I love it.
that's a great place to end.
See,
It
and that
speak-
was
it
not
speaks to the state.
That was not on purpose. That was just a super cool thing and fun facts about Michigan. So awesome. All right, last thing. If you haven't already joined, if you haven't made the pledge, the Tuebor Pledge just yet, do it. Right now's the perfect time to do it and back any Michigan-based company, whether it's a public company, a local business, a high-growth startup. You can do that now. Right, go to tuebor.org. Take the Tuebor Pledge and join so that next year we can put you on this list of great people that have made investments into Michigan-based businesses, because it is part of our culture in Michigan to represent the things that we do well here, to back the things that we do well here, the brands that are being built here, the companies that are being built here, the people that are building these great things here. And this is a way for you to get involved with doing that
And
now.
maybe if you already have, drop a comment on this video.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll send you a hat or a t-shirt or something like that. So
Yeah.
some people have already made the Tuebor commitment and just haven't publicly really expressed it yet. So
And-
leave a comment and we'll be watching.
Add a comment. We'll see some Tuebor hats and shirts.
You probably should join.
We'll get you one.
All right.
I mean, you got to take
We
the
know
pledge.
I'll probably join. I gotta,
Yeah.
I gotta join. We're gonna join. Okay, thank you, Reilly, Chris. You guys are awesome. Really appreciate the time today.
Thanks, Pete.
This is the first annual Tuebor Pledge summary, the annual report of the Tuebor
Let's do it
Pledge,
again.
and next year is going to be even bigger. Thank you,
The
guys.
best is yet to come.
All right,
Thank you,
Thanks,
Pete.
Pete.
Thank you all for watching. We'll catch you on the next episode of the Flannel Rocket.
My name is Corey Tincher, and I'm an investor at Detroit Venture Partners. We made a pre-seed investment into a Detroit-based startup called Bloom last year. Bloom is an operations as a service marketplace for the electric mobility industry, providing turnkey services for domestic manufacturing, assembly, delivery, and servicing for companies making consumer products like e-bikes, scooters, and electric ATVs. Their network of service providers allows these customers to leverage economies of scale in the network to drive operational efficiencies and better unit economics. What initially stood out to us about Bloom was the strength of co-founders Justin Cosmides, a veteran of Wall Street who later launched an e-bike OEM called Bella Bikes, and Chris Nolte, a U.S. Army veteran who built an e-bike marketplace before partnering with Justin to build Bloom. Since investing, the company has been operating at a breakneck pace, building the platform and marketplace while closing deals with clients ranging from startups, building go-to-market products to established micro-mobility OEMs to Fortune 500 OEMs launching new vehicle platforms. We're thrilled to be a part of this journey with the Bloom team. Can't wait for more of the world to get to know them.
This is Josh Berg, and I'm excited to talk about my investment in Mongers Provisions in Berkeley. I invested in Mongers in 2024 because I just really believe in the founding team and their vision of delivering great food and great experiences, great stories to customers in Michigan. They used investment dollars to expand into the Rind, which is an award-winning restaurant connected to the retail shop at Mongers. And I just really believe in the two founders. I think they're really visionaries. They've done some amazing things, even during the pandemic when restaurants and food service was really in a difficult place. They completely pivoted and started doing virtual tastings for corporate audiences. We did one at Magnum, and it was pretty exciting, and an amazing pivot during a difficult time. So I believe in the guys, and I'm excited to support the entrepreneurial ecosystem, the startup ecosystem in Michigan with Mongers Provisions. Thanks.